What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto mother is an alien? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. All is lost. All is lost. Uzumaki Gito was a born optimist, the glass was halfway full. But he could not help but feel despair as he stood at the top of Central Administration Tower watching the village slip into absolute anarchy. His village, Uzu-Shiogakure. Sir, we lost the third outpost. They've fallen. He heard a colleague, most likely a Chunin, cry out in terror, slowly as comprehending the situation they were in. Oh Kami, they killed Katia. They killed her. Get it together. There was the sound of an audible smack. Keep it together, Marnie, or I swear I will kill you. Gito gazed out the window of the central headquarters only to see a black void. The only problem is, if Gito's watch was accurate, was that it should have been broad daylight. They're outside. Gito growled. The building's defensive shield will hold, but not for long. Father, what do we do? Gito sighed as he turned to his daughter, Rika, looking at her round face, bright green eyes, and blood-red flowing hair. Gito mused at his daughter. She was the youngest of 14 children. Admittedly, when he first heard news about Rika, he was unsure about whether he wanted another child, especially at his age. However, all that doubt went away when Gito held her in his arms. Rika was one of 14, but that was before the infection. Now she is the last. 7 years old, brilliant, funny and extraordinarily beautiful, and no, that was not paternal pride. She had a smile that could light up a room. Only she was not smiling, she was frightened, her eyes quivering in fear. What do? We can only hold out as long as we can. Gito mused, turning back to the void. The 5 great nations are outside, they will get here soon. No, they won't. Gito ruffled his maroon spiky hair in frustration. This was his village. He was not exactly a cage, but he was the closest Uzu-Shiogakure had. The citizens of this village trusted him with their future, their children's future, and now that along with everything else is about to go up in smoke, and all under his watch. Gito-sama. Sir? The old leader turned to his nervous second-in-command, a man about 18 years old, a recently promoted Junin. This was not Gito's actual second-in-command. She was killed during the original containment breach several days ago. What is it, kid? Gito felt so old. Sir, we're down to 20 people. There is still about 2 pockets of resistance on the eastern side, but they are about to be overrun. The young Junin. I have contact with our reinforcements from the 5 great nations. And? They can't get to us. The Junin gulped. There are too many Xenos. The outbreak has formed a stage 3 hive. There are heavies out there and they are blocking the main entrance and exit points. Gito nodded. That was actually better than expected. Anything more than stage 3 and the outbreak would spread beyond the island. So Uzu-Shio is still contained, at least for now. Predicted time of rescue? The look on the Junin's face said it all, but answered nonetheless. They said it would take 4 hours before they can get to us. The Junin grunted as he left the room. And the emergency containment barrier I surrounded the building with will last less than 30 minutes. Great. Gito owlishly blinked his eyes, surveying the room filled with the last members of his village and his family. They were all so afraid, and with good reason. Their attacker is not something to be taken lightly. Father. The old leader felt his daughter tug on his war uniform. I'm scared. Gito dropped his lead facade and embraced the role of a father. He smiled down at his daughter, or at least tried to. Now Rika-chan, I know you're afraid, I am too. She teared up and let out a half chuckle. You're never afraid. Oh, I am. But you can't let it control you. He knelt down so that they met at eye level. You have to stay strong. Stay strong for me. Gito for a brief moment paused, and wondered if he was saying that for her or for himself. His thoughts were brought back to the present as he felt a small girl wrap her arms tightly around him in a hug. I miss Mom, she sobbed. I know. Gito returned the hug. I miss her too. I don't want to die. Gito nearly broke hearing his own daughter in despair. Gito dared not say a word, for fear his voice would break out into cries. I don't want to die like Mom. You won't. Gito put on his best leader voice. You promise? Rika released her father from her embrace to look him in the eyes. Gito would have loved nothing more than to leap out of the barrier and face the Xenos outside, allowing himself to be taken and harvested. It was what he deserved. But he could not leave Rika alone. And Gito knew that there was only one way he could keep the promise his daughter asked him to make. "Father? Daddy? All is lost, I promise." Rika let one of her precious smiles escape her lips. That was all Gito needed to do what he had to do. Rika never felt her father's senbon needle enter the back of her head just under the second vertebrae. Her body went completely limp in his arms and a small gasp escaped her lips. The light in her eyes were immediately extinguished. The look on her face was still one of happiness of hope. That was the only thing Gito could offer his daughter. Gito held her tightly, and as he removed the needle from her, he wondered what kind of hell he has condemned himself to. However, that was brief. What mattered was that Rika, his darling daughter, was no longer a part in this chaos. If eternal damnation was the price to ensure she stayed free from the terror that awaited her outside, he could deal with it. However, he so desperately wanted to cry, to let go, but it is not time to do so yet. Oh, fuck. Gito turned to face a rather horrified Chunin who still had trouble contemplating what he just saw. In fact, everyone in the room turned to their leader in combination of sadness and fear. The old leader placed Rika gently on the floor. Looking at her now, she almost seemed to be sleeping, having one of her fantastic dreams. He slowly got up and rounded on the Chunin, who was currently and nervously fiddling with a kunai in his pouch, prepared to defend himself. Wait sir, please, relax son, Gito croaked. I am no longer in any state to harm anyone else. But, the Chunin stared in absolute terror at his leader. His hands were shaking so badly the kunai nearly fell out of his hands. What about rescue? There is no rescue boy. Gito sighed as he moved past him, the nervous subordinate trailing him with wide eyes. But the nations won't get here in time. Gito interrupted. He proceeded through to the main office and glanced around the room. There was his Junin second in command, and on the radio was a young rookie girl. She still looked like she was in the academy. Report. Well sir, The Junin trailed off as he glanced at the horrified Chunin who slowly staggered out of the room. Gito had to admire his second-in-command join the dots so quickly. Rika-chan? Gito barely had the ability to nod, much less speak. The Junin sighed, realizing that if Gito-sama, the leader of Uzushiogakure, was willing to do that, then apparently they were all completely screwed. Well, we just lost contact with the resistance on the eastern side. The Junin frowned. So the Hive will now focus all its attention on us. I see. Gito moved towards the radio, waving aside the rookie who seemed preoccupied hiding her tears. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder, inviting her to step aside, which she did so reluctantly. Put me through to the 5 nations. The rookie paused before adjusting a small dial on the radio. RR ready, sir. Gito took a deep breath before he spoke into the mic. This is Gito, can anyone read me? Gito-san? An old voice replied over the static. Good to hear you, Sarutobi-sama? Gito could not help but smile considering the situation. Figured you would be out there. Please Gito-san, no need for formalities. The old voice chuckled. Hiruzen. Gito sighed. It is nice to hear a friendly voice. Well, it is not just us out here. The former Hokage mused. There is quite a few of us out here. Iwa, Kiri, even Kumo have made an appearance. Killer B-san and Minato-san are out here. The Hachibi Jirinchiki and the Yellow Flash? Gito could not help but feel pride at receiving so much help. The same. Hiruzen's tone took a more serious turn. Look Gito, we will get to you, but it will be at least 2 or 3 hours before we can breach the barrier those blasted Xenos have set up. Barrier? Gito was confused, and for a brief moment terrified. These creatures cannot use seals, can they? Sorry, they have generated some kind of bioelectric field out there. Hiruzen explained. It is causing havoc with Minato's Hirishin no Jutsu. Konoha is trying to burn its way through, but the Xenos are fighting tooth and nail. Kiri is currently underwater trying to dig an underground tunnel in with the help of Iwa Shinobi. But apparently the Xenos have laid traps everywhere. Containment? 100%. Herzuin quipped. Don't worry Gito, they will not get off the island. I promise. How are you holding up? Not well. Gito choked. There is less than 20 of us and we are all locked up in the tower. The barrier will not hold out for long, half an hour at most. Hiruzen went eerily quiet on the other end. Just sit tight, we'll get to you. No you won't. Gito chuckled. You are a terrible liar Hiruzen. You can't give up. I'm afraid we can. Gito inched his face close to the microphone. I'm not going to let what is left of my village be turned into cattle. What would you have me do then? Do what you would do if this was an ordinary infestation. Gito did not have to turn around to see the faces of his men and women go pale as white sheets. In an ordinary infestation you just blow up the area to kingdom come. Wait a minute, one Chunin cried out. He was quickly silenced by the Junin, who delivered a hard shot to the gut. The objecting Chunin quickly fell to the floor groaning in pain. Shut up, all of you, the Junin commanded, and very few were willing to challenge him. I can't do that. Hiruzen's response was resolute. Yes you can. No. Hiruzen was adamant. You are one of my oldest friends. I would never do that to you. Hiruzen, you are as stubborn as the day I met you. All is lost Hiruzen. Gito slammed his hands into the desk. I repeat, all is lost. Do you want me to spell it out for you? But, let me break this down. This is a simple case of mathematics. You won't get here for at least 2 hours. The barrier, the last defense in my arsenal, is breaking in about 20 minutes. Gito growled. So save us the pain of being infected and end it. If you don't do it now, I will make it easy for you. I will drop the barrier and let them take us. Do you want that? No. Hiruzen yelled. Gito, be rational, we just need more time. There has to be another way. Another voice broke into the conversation. It was far younger, but there was no doubt a strong sense of maturity behind it. We don't abandon our allies, Gito-sama. Minato-san? Indeed. Young man, have you ever encountered a Xeno infestation before? No, I have. So has Hiruzen-san. Gito ground his teeth. There is no other way out. Believe me, I know. I refuse to accept this. The Yondaime began yelling out orders to someone else, telling them to pick up the pace. Gito had heard of Minato and Jiraiya's greatest pupil. That would explain his tenacity, his strength, and unbelievable stubbornness. Son, I admire your bravery, but I was just told that the ability that made you so famous is useless, is it not? Gito was an old man. He enjoyed giving barbs to young upstarts. Yes, but this is just one of many things a stage 3 hive can do. Gito sighed. Believe me, they only get stronger. Tell Killer Bee to charge up a tailed beast bomb and target the village. Gito-sama. Minato sounded incredibly flustered. Son, please, don't make me beg. Gito croaked. The silence on the line was almost deafening. Gito-sama, is this really what you want? What all of you want? Gito felt the sounds of several people enter the room and all eyes on him. He turned to gaze at the remnants of Uzushiogakure. He saw people of all ages and backgrounds, but they all had Uzumaki lineage, so they were all family. All of them were terrified, especially the younger ones who wanted to escape. Although they remained silent, their eyes screamed out, no. However, the older ones were more accustomed to life and death, and they realized the chances were abysmal. Like the younger ones, they said nothing, but their eyes indicated they were in state of acceptance. Yes, Gito sighed. One of the younger shinobi was about to cry out in objection, only to get silenced by the Junin. Give the order. Tell Killer Bee to keep on firing until there is nothing left. Okay, Minato sighed. I'll clear it with Kumo. It will be ready in less than 10 minutes. The young Hokage got off the line to leave his predecessor to contemplate the situation. Gito, this is insane. If there is another way, believe me, I would take it. Gito almost sounded rehearsed. Besides, the longer you wait, the higher the chance the hive will reach stage 4. If that happens, then we will be in deeper shit than we already are. You are not one for vulgarity, Gito. The former Hokage chuckled. It is unbecoming. Just highlighting the seriousness of the situation. Gito quipped. Do you want me to stay on the line? Hiruzen, what am I? 12? Gito scoffed. You sound like my mother. Hiruzen let out a full-blown laugh, which Gito reluctantly joined in. Well, in that case, goodbye Gito, and good luck. With that, the radio went dead. Gito stared blankly at the radio until he heard what sounded like something heavy dropping. The young academy student, the radio operator, was on the ground, knees tucked into her chest, cradling herself in the fetal position. Staring at the last of his family, he tried to think of something to say. Nothing really came to mind except, I'm sorry, Gito muttered, for everything. With all due respect, Gito-sama. The Chunin that witnessed the death of Rika cried out, what the fuck do we do now? Do whatever you have to. Gito moved away from the main office back into his private viewing room, back to Rika. Do whatever you see fit, out there, in here. It doesn't matter. He closed the door behind him and slowly moved towards his little girl. Sitting himself on the floor, he picked her up and placed her on his lap, stroking her red hair. She still looked so peaceful, bringing back fond memories of when Gito used to tell her bedtime stories. With that, Gito let go, his eyes watering until tears streamed down its cheeks. Rita-chan, it's almost over. Uzushiogakure was a long-standing ally of Konohagakure, a partner nation. The rule went that if one village or nation was destroyed, the other would inherit its assets: shinobi, territory, property, trade secrets, finances, everything. In Konoha's case, it also meant they inherited the Queen Mother. Naturally, like any estate, there were arguments as to who got what, and villages like people can be petty and treacherous when money or power are involved. Strangely enough, almost all the nations agreed that the Queen Mother was Konoha's property. Although Konoha was entitled, they reluctantly accepted it. Being host to the Queen Mother carried risk. The exact same risk that destroyed Uzushio. The Queen Mother was, in effect, a fail-safe, or rather a fail-deadly item. Like the xenomorph itself, you don't dare attack the village hosting it. Doing so can result in very unpleasant consequences. Konoha had ended up with a complete mess ever since. Thanks to Uzumaki Mitsuhide and his treachery, he took Uzushiogakure and the secrets of the Xeno Jinchuriki with him to his grave. The Uzumaki, long-standing allies and the only viable candidates to be Xeno Jinchuriki, were all but extinct. Konoha decided to transplant the Queen Mother into a girl who was part of the Konoha Uzushio exchange program, Uzumaki Kushina. The other great nations feared the balance of power had been permanently shifted in Konoha's favor. There were whispers of war, followed by actual threats of war if Konoha did not do something to ensure the balance of the ninja world. The Yondaime, already a soldier of the previous war, finally acquiesced to international pressure and gave in to their demands. Peace was guaranteed, for a time at least. The rest, as they say, is history. Orochimaru, the woman, spoke. We need to talk. Well, if you seek an audience, then you have most certainly earned it. The pale snake-like man smiled. How did you find me? I have been blessed with many gifts. Several black serpent-like creatures crawled out of the shadows beside her. As well as friends. Ah, Orochimaru licked his lips in interest. The Xeno Jinchuriki, I am honored. I never would have thought to meet one, at least not on friendly terms like this. We are not friends. The fact you and your loyal servants have not tried to hack me to death says otherwise. Orochimaru's smile earned a threatening hiss from the Xeno guarding their master. In my book, that makes us friends, at the very least acquaintances. I was under the impression that Xeno soldiers were strictly forbidden. How did you get so many? Facehuggers are just as effective, if not more so, than any kunai. She stroked the ridge of one of the soldiers, who seemed to lean into her touch like a cat. Besides, your men volunteered the moment they attacked me. The snake-like man chuckled in amusement. That would explain why no one has tried to come to my aid. So why, pray tell, come to me? Did you make a small detour on your journey? I am not here on a field trip. The woman flung a few strands of her blood-red hair out of the way. I am here on business. Business? The snake Sanin raised a brow. What kind? Personal. I like that kind. Orochimaru gestured to a nearby chair. Take a seat if you want. I prefer to stand. The woman stood firm. The Xeno soldiers slowly backed away, giving her some room. My business is simple. I want you to help me conceive a child. To any man's credit, they would react with similar surprise, horror, and keen interest. Orochimaru may have been treacherous, and some would say, evil, sociopath who was obsessed with immortality, but he was a man. Standing there, arms limp at his sides, eyes wide and mouth open, he could barely muster a response. What? Not like that, she yelled out. A blush was apparent once she realized how many ways her statement could have been taken. Don't flatter yourself. Orochimaru immediately regained his composure and let out a cheeky smile. Well, if not me, then who is the lucky man? None of your concern. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Xeno Jinchuriki cannot have children. Your acidic nature prevents this. Many a man and woman died because of that problem. Orochimaru waved away the request as a childish fantasy. Besides, you have plenty of children, they are right next to you, and I think I made them cross. The woman silenced the hissing of her guards before glaring back at him. They are the children of the Queen Mother that lies inside of me. I want a child that is my own. I know I cannot conceive as I am now, but you can help me. Really? How so? Don't play coy with my Orochimaru, you are a gifted scientist. The woman began to grow irritated. You have created many things, some said were impossible to make. You brought extinct bloodlines back to the world. You created clones and altered gene structures. If anyone can help me, it is you. I love flattery, it is always so accurate. Orochimaru crossed his arms smugly. Why precisely should my keen intellect be wasted on what seems a trivial quest such as yours? Because if you refuse, I'll get cross and we know what happens then. Several Xenos hissed in unison, crawling closer towards the snake Sanin. Orochimaru remained incredibly calm, in fact he found it funny. Besides, I think the challenge is enough to interest you. Well, I have always wanted to work with a Xeno Jinchuriki, and it is a unique venture. Orochimaru rubbed his chin thoughtfully. You have my utmost attention at least. What of the matter of payment? I have money. The woman sounded confident. Any price you throw out, I can meet it. Bold claim. Orochimaru found her response to be childish, but he did not doubt the redhead. But I have plenty of money already. But there is something else I want. What is that? Orochimaru's eyes glinted in the darkness. Well, how about an egg? It was the woman's turn to look dumbstruck. What? One egg, with one facehugger? Orochimaru smiled triumphantly. That's the deal. Several of the Xenos turned to their master, their heads tilted in curiosity. Why would you want a Xeno egg? That is none of your concern. The snake Sanin smiled. Do we have a deal? The woman stood silent for what seemed like hours. Giving Xeno material, especially to someone like Orochimaru, was wrong both as far as her personal code went, not to mention it was a flat-out crime. The sentence of Xeno smuggling was death. Not even the Xeno Jinchuriki was exempt. On the other hand, she desperately wanted this so much. Despite knowing it was wrong. Every day was a maddening experience, driven by an instinct that could no longer be ignored. The choice wasn't really a choice. Deal, but only when your work is finished. After that, you get one egg with one facehugger. If your work fails, I find you, I kill you and take the facehugger back. That sounds fair. Orochimaru approached the woman, the Xenos hissing in objection but made no move to attack. Shall we shake on it? If there was never a more appropriate analogy for a deal with the devil, it was this. However, in this case, it was two devils and one of them had a very short fuse, an entire army in waiting and bled acid. She reached up and took his hand in her own. Marvelous. Orochimaru smiled. So Konoha does not really know you are here? The woman slowly shook her head. An expression of guilt more than apparent on her face. No, I like this business arrangement more and more. Orochimaru could only imagine the look on his sensei's face when he finds out. So do you have a name? The woman remained silent for a moment. My name is Uzumaki Kushina. Well, Uzumaki Kushina, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful business relationship. Orochimaru did a half-turn and gestured further into his labyrinth. Shall we begin? Many years later, the incident known as the end of Uzushiogakure was a sobering reminder to not only Konoha but indeed all nations that no one was untouchable. No one, not even the Uzumaki. Times changed, the world grew smaller. As a consequence, the countries became more tense. The world was no longer big enough to accommodate all of them. However, if it was not for the actions of few good men and women, there would have been a fourth ninja war a long time ago. But that did not happen. At least not yet. The Sandaime could not help but feel old as he stared at the young child cooing quietly in his crib. He also could not help but wonder how he could ever look in the mirror ever again after tonight. He glanced around the vacant room. Although converted into a hospital and maternity ward, its original purpose was a bomb shelter. About a kilometer underground, it was the perfect if not logical location to perform a procedure he had been regretting. Hiruzen, are you okay? Hiruzen turned his eyes to his colleague Mitokado Homura, who was cleaning his glasses with his sleeve, his eyelids black from a lack of sleep. No, I am not okay. The Sandaime growled. I would rather be enjoying a cup of tea than here. I refuse to believe this is the only course left to me. Hiruzen, you are thinking like a man. Homura placed a firm grip on his friend's shoulder. We need you to think like a leader. We need the Hokage. Homura, shut up. The Sandaime spun around, pointing a bony figure into the advisor's chest. Shut up. I was the Hokage. In case you have not realized, I retired. This was my successor's job. He cannot help anyone. Homura's face remained passive. Minato knew what had to be done and chose to be selfish. He tried to stop what we were doing, and he paid for it with his life. He chose to be a father, so you assassinate him? Hiruzen's pointed finger turned into a fist. I should flatten you right now. Homura stiffened as he felt a wave of killer intent flow over him like a wave. Sarutobi Hiruzen might actually do it. Relax, Hiruzen. Neither Homura nor Koharu killed him. Hiruzen spun around to see a bandaged man standing in the entrance. Me on the other hand. Danzo, you son of a. Have you really become so senile you are resorting to insults? Danzo winced painfully as a free hand touched a rather fresh scar on the side of his face. Killing a Kage, especially Minato, is arguably impossible. Then again, Danzo had a reputation for doing the impossible. Even so, Minato was not one to go down without a fight. If Jiraiya finds out it was you, he will, no doubt, try to kill me, and will most likely succeed. Danzo seemed unperturbed as he entered the room, glancing around in mild disinterest. But he will not find out. Because you are not going to tell him anything. I made it look like a foreign assassin got to his tea. How could you do that to him? The Sandaime stared at him aghast, wondering where that boy who he made friends with all those years ago went. He was a traitor, Danzo quipped. Ignoring the actions he has done in the past, he was going to stop the procedure so he could try to save his son and dying wife. Frankly, if there was another option, I would not have resorted to this. Hiruzen had a hard time believing that, and his incredulity was apparent on his face. Danzo chose to ignore it. But there wasn't, so I put him down like a sick animal. Hiruzen was about to say something but was interrupted when three people rushed into the room with a gurney. Danzo had to perform a quick side step to get out of the way and gave a menacing scowl to the new intruders. One of them was none other than Hiruzen's second teammate from the younger days, Utatane Koharu. The other was an Anbu captain, white-clad and with a cat mask. The final person was a young redhead, completely sedated and lying on the gurney. She looked incredibly pale, and gaunt, almost like a corpse. If it was not for the subtle breathing, Hiruzen would have thought she was dead. Uzumaki Kushina. Hiruzen's mind was spinning. Wait, you are going to do it here? Now? We have no choice. The queen is breaking through the seal. We have to start the transfer now. Can she hear us? Don't worry, we made sure we drugged her shortly after she held her child. Danzo smirked. No adverse memories will be transferred over to the new host. He's not a host. The Hokage growled. True, the boy is not a host yet. Danzo continued. We are running out of time and options here. Do I need to remind you that the Uzumaki are the only people who can contain the Queen Mother for any decent period of time? And considering what happened to their village, the Uzumaki are not exactly growing on trees. Would you rather we put the Queen Mother in some other child? They would last less than a week. Danzo, you sick son of a. Hiruzen fumed, gesturing to the small boy in the crib. This is not a host. He is just a boy. A little baby. You know, maybe all these years I was wrong. Perhaps you really are a monster after all. I'm a monster. Danzo opened his unbandaged eye to stare at the angry Hokage. I'm sick. Fine, you can do this yourself. I'm going home to sleep and nurse my wounds. Danzo turned around and walked out the door. Wait, Danzo. Koharu yelled, grasping at the cane-wielding ninja's sleeve. You can't go. Sure I can. Danzo turned around to face his colleagues and the Anbu captain. You don't actually need me. I have done my part. No, you have not, Danzo. Homura growled. You know we cannot do this without you. Really? Danzo's mouth crept into an even more serious frown. All of you know how to do the procedure. Why do you need me? Hiruzen took in a deep breath and let out a seething hiss. You know why. Oh, Danzo's eyes narrowed, so you know what needs to be done. You just can't do it yourself. Koharu did her best to defuse the situation to no avail. Danzo. This is why I always opposed you and your besotted lot as Hokages. A twinge of rage flashed Danzo's face. You do not have the courage to do what is necessary. None of you do. You despise me, and call me sick, a monster. Yet when you have a problem that you cannot hope to solve, who do you come crawling to? Danzo gestured to himself as an exhibit. Homura could not help but wipe a bead of sweat that developed on his brow. We don't have time for this. Kushina could die any minute and then the queen will be loose. I'll tell you what, Hokage-sama. I will do it, but you have to order me to do it. Then you are going to have to stand there and hold the child down while he screams in pain as I start the transfusion. Why are you doing this? Because I am fed up with you being weak, Hiruzen. I am fed up with you making Konoha weak. You have the opportunity to keep the Kyuubi, and what did you do? You allowed Minato, that traitorous dog, to give it away. All for the sake of peace. All because some countries were nervous that we were too powerful. Not this time, Hokage-sama. Now you are going to finally step up. I am not going to wash the blood off my hands alone, Hiruzen. Danzo seemed to take some satisfaction at the Hokage's face became as pale as a white sheet. It's one thing to kill a man, it is quite another to turn a child into a Jinchuriki, especially to the Queen Mother. Sarutobi turned to stare at the child who was suckling his thumb. Well? Danzo tapped his can impatiently. Sarutobi closed his eyes, condemning the fact he will probably never sleep well ever again. Do it. What? Danzo mused. I did not catch that. Hiruzen's eyes hardened as he turned to stare at the head of the Anbu Root Division. Danzo, I order you to start the transference. Danzo smirked, satisfied with what has transpired. Very well, Hokage-sama, but I will need someone to hold the child while the transference occurs. The Sandaime felt completed nauseated as he agreed to the second condition of Danzo's deal. I'll do it. Very good. With a tap of his cane, Danzo slowly moved over to Kushina, positioning the gurney so that it was next to the crib. Did you bring it? Yes, Danzo-sama. The Anbu captain pulled out a specialized medical kit from under his pouch and handed it to the bandaged ninja. The equipment is resistant to Kushina-san's blood. Good. Danzo began extracting the equipment and laying them next to the gurney. He gave a needle to Hiruzen with a sinister smile. Well, I am ready on my end. Hiruzen? The Sandaime would have loved nothing more than to tell Danzo where to shove that needle. But as much as Hiruzen hated to admit, Danzo was right. This needed to be done, however, he and indeed Homura, Kaharu, even the Anbu captain were not capable of doing it. They were too human. Danzo did not suffer from the same condition. The old man slowly walked to the crib and placed his hands gently against the child's shoulders. He closed his eyes and thought of happier times. Arthritis is a bastard. Imagine your body being set on fire, but there is no way to put it out. It is painful, heavy, distracting, and worst of all, unnerving. And it gets worse with age. That will give you a rough idea of what it is like to have arthritis. I guess the Shodaime and Nidaime could count themselves lucky for passing on so young. The Sandaime massaged his hands in silence, using a little chakra to dull the pain. It's funny, we can use chakra to glue someone's skin back on and raise them back from the dead, but we can't find a solution to old joints and bad backs. It's times like this I can empathize with Oanoki. It was Monday morning and already the Hokage could tell he was going to have a bad week. The paperwork was larger than normal and it was more complicated. Hiruzen was a master of speed reading, but it seemed there was a lot of mission foul-ups. Thus he could not just skim over the blasted things. Katetsu, the Sandaime shouted. Coffee. Sorry, sir. A young man rushed in with a fresh cup of the heavenly brew. The very smell made the old man smile. And keep it coming, the Hokage sipped, it's going to be a long day. Yes, sir. The Hokage would generally go back to being a bureaucrat, but he noticed the Chunin had not moved. And he was holding something in his hand. That was not good. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. 15. I am not in the mood for 20 questions, Katetsu. The Sandaime looked up. Stop being polite and just tell me what the problem is. Well, sir? Katetsu fumbled, handing the small bundle of paper over to the Hokage. There was an incident this morning. A Naruto one. Again? The Hokage groaned. He reached into his third desk drawer and pulled out an orange folder, the Naruto file. It was filled to the brim with incident reports. It was getting so bad he might have to make another one. Damn it. What's the damage this time? The Hokage snatched the document from the Chunin's hand. Some minor property damage, broken dishes and a glass window. Katetsu gulped. But sir, it was not a regular one, there was a fight. The Hokage's eyes darted back up to the Chunin. What kind? An academy fight. It got a little out of control. Katetsu gulped. Naruto is a little beat up, but otherwise fine. But his opponents? Katetsu tried to sound reassuring, and failing spectacularly, but his opponents they're alive, but they are currently in intensive care. It is unknown if they will recover at this time. Oh God? The Hokage blinked slowly, taking in the news. He slowly read the incident report. It was sketchy and rushed. And the crumpled texture of the paper told him it was handed between too many people in a hurry. Three graduating academy students. One boy said something to the other. Naruto attacked and was kicked through window. Renewed effort to attack using retractable claws. Frenzied. Academy student used kunai. Cut Naruto. Blood injured two academy student. Their hands and arms severely damaged. Third, minor lacerations. Academy instructors responded by restraining all parties involved. Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it. The Hokage frowned. This was just as bad as last time. Where is Naruto? The Hokage grumbled. Outside, sir. The Chunin piped. Under guard. Of course, the Hokage moaned. Naruto had been giving the village every excuse to ostracize him further, giving the council even further credence to the folly of adopting the Queen Mother. Hiruzen tried to argue that Naruto is no different than any other Jinchuriki. Konoha had the Kyuubi for many years and those that were host to it were treated like people. But this is different, they countered. He's unpredictable and more importantly, dangerous. Konoha sharing Uzu Shiogakure's fate was a nightmare that haunted everyone on the council. While technically a secret, everyone knew Naruto was the Xeno Jinchuriki. The acid for blood was kind of a dead giveaway, amongst many other sign. It was kind of like Anbu. No one is supposed to know about it yet everyone does. Send him in. The Hokage filed the latest in a long line of incidents in the orange folder. No need for guards. Katetsu nodded and left the room in hurried fashion. The Hokage did not wait long before the door opened again. And there stood the Hokage's deepest regret. A 6-year-old boy walked into his office half slouching, half crouching. His skin was of an eerily pale complexion. His build was gaunt, almost skeletal, the skin hugging his bones and flesh. Combined with slight tinges of yellow or green, the boy could be mistaken for a very sick person. Hardly the kind of individual who can take on 3 newly promoted genin and win, or at least reach a stalemate. The blonde's hair hung limply on his head and blue eyes darting all around the room, looking for something that made sense only to him. He was dressed in his orange jumpsuit, but modified with large zippers, velcro and gashes. It was the kind of clothes you would think a stripper would wear. Then again, when your blood can melt steel, you tend to stop spending money on trying to look presentable. The Hokage noticed Naruto's right sleeve was made of a different material, as if the sleeve was torn off and replaced it with a new one. Hello Naruto. The Hokage tried to take the first step. Hello Sandame. Naruto hissed, taking large gulps between breaths, trying to keep drooling to a minimum. You know why you are here? Yes. Naruto continued glancing around the room, watching, waiting. Same reason as always. Naruto, we've had this talk before. The Hokage kept his voice even. You can't do this anymore. They started it. Naruto sounded confident and vindicated. Neither was the case as far as the Hokage was concerned. You can't start a fight based on what they said. The Hokage frowned. They're just kids. Easy for you to say, Naruto growled, glaring at a piece of furniture in disdain. They weren't trash-talking you. Naruto, listen to me. You just have to. The Hokage slammed his hand against the desk. Naruto, look at me when I'm talking to you. Naruto's eyes complied and immediately zeroed in on him like a hawk on a hare. Hiruzen was briefly taken aback by the blonde's pale blue eyes and the intelligence that hid behind them. This has got to stop. The Hokage exasperated. You might be right, maybe they were saying something against you, but you are not proving your case. I am not going to be around forever. Who is going to help you then? What do you mean, you won't be around? Naruto's eyes widened. Are you sick? No, I'm not sick, Naruto. The Hokage soothed his breathing, allowing the tension in the room to drop. I'm saying I'm old, Naruto. I am going to die eventually. But that won't happen for. Naruto, listen and focus. The Hokage interrupted the boy. I had a meeting last week with the council. Do you know what they want to do? The boy slowly shook his head. They want to put you under house arrest. The old man continued. They want to put you in a prison. And frankly, I am running out of excuses not to do so. You would do that to me? Naruto's eyes widened in horror. Over this? I'm on your side, Naruto, but I am just one man. The Hokage leaned back into his chair, his back aching. I may be the Hokage, but that does not make me all-powerful. I can be overruled. I can be ordered. And when you are attacking Konoha citizens left and right with little to no valid cause. Do I need to remind you that you have just inflicted grievous bodily harm on 2 Konoha shinobi? They started it. Naruto yelled, gripping his fists. What do you want me to do? Not get cut? They pulled the kunai, not me. You wouldn't have got cut in the first place if you had that temper of yours under control. The Hokage spoke slowly. Naruto, I will not deny there are those who have mistreated you. But that does not give you the right to attack people on sight simply because they badmouth you. The boy remained silent, but the Hokage could see Naruto's eyes watering. Yet practice and determination allowed him to keep the tears from falling. Crying was okay, but it's just a little embarrassing when your tears can melt the floor. The Sandaime breathed in slowly. Naruto, you are a bright boy, with top grades in all areas. I know, deep down you think what you did was wrong. Use your head, not your gut. Appeal to the boy, not the queen mother. Hiruzen recited to himself. Get him thinking again. Many shinobi have ended up in dangerous, even fatal situations because they let their emotions run rampant. You need to stop and look at things logically. Naruto, I want you to promise me to think things through next time. And if you are stressed or panicked, you know where I live. You can come to me for help, day or night. Can you do that? Yes, I promise. Naruto echoed. Okay. The Hokage nodded. Now get back to the academy. I don't want to go back. I don't like it there. The kids. Naruto frowned. It's boring. Maybe Naruto, the Hokage smirked, but you have to. Think of it this way, Naruto. Do well and you will never have to go back again. No boring schoolwork, no insults. You'll be free and clear. Naruto's pale eyes gazed at the old man with a certain glint you don't see in children. The kind where people think you are lying to them. Naruto nonetheless swallowed whatever he was going to say and nodded glumly. Yes sir. Good. Off you go. The exact moment Naruto closed the door, he scrambled for his paperwork muttering diligently. Insane paperwork, and now this, the Hokage sighed. I'll never hear the end of it. Naruto did not go back to the academy exactly. He would return to class eventually, but it would be best to slip back in quietly during recess. At the moment he was sitting on a roof of one of the many buildings in Konoha. Oh, how he hated open spaces, it felt so very exposed and vulnerable. He wanted to return to his small house just on the outskirts, but it was too far. So Naruto decided best just to take a time out somewhere isolated and deal with his problems. The blonde was experiencing a variety of emotions. Fear, anger, guilt, suspicion and betrayal were among them. How could he do this to me? Naruto fumed silently, clenching his fists. It was their fault. Defend us. They treated me like crap. They all treat me like crap. I defend myself and I'm the bad guy? Bad guy? Naruto blinked. Right or wrong, the Hokage insisted he had a problem. Konoha's going to make me a prisoner. Make us a prisoner. But the old man will defend me. He'll protect me, won't he? Naruto wanted to believe the Hokage would help him. But that look, it did not look very reassuring in the slightest. No, he can't help. Abandon us, I'm leaving him no choice, always a choice. The council is rallying against him, old and weak. He's stuck his neck out for me too many times, we can't trust him. Naruto sniffed unpleasantly before taking a large gulp of the saliva accumulating in his mouth. No, I'm on my own, we are alone. I can't trust this village, once it's dead, and I can't rely on the Hokage, kill him. Gazing at the sky, Naruto judged that recess was approaching soon. He probably had enough time to pack his stuff and make a run for it. He doubted the village would miss him. No more drooling for fights, they might even celebrate. But where would I go? We leave. Wouldn't I end up a missing nin? Protect us. But I can't abandon the Sandaime. Kill him. I owe everything to him, will take everything from us. Naruto glanced behind him to see the stone carving of the Hokages, his eyes settling on the old man. I can't leave with him still here, kill him. He's basically the closest thing I got to family, kill him and leave. What? Naruto muttered in confusion. I would have to kill him, kill him. No. Naruto blurted out only to clamp a hand on his mouth. Don't bother anyone, remember, remember. Only then did he taste the warm copper in his mouth. He glanced at his hand. He clenched his fists so hard he drew blood. Ah crap, Naruto gasped, realizing the implications. Oh crap. The blonde glanced on the roof. Several droplets hit the roof, hissing and spitting madly. Naruto's heart raced, panicking on how he was going to explain this so soon after just getting out of the cage's office. Oh shito 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 shit. It was only when the blood was neutralized did he sigh in relief. Rather than large holes, there was little more than scars. Obviously not as much blood as he thought. That or the roof was made of hardier stuff. Kami, that could have been a disaster. Naruto shook his head, forcing his mind away from the disappointed look on the old man's face, focusing instead on the first time the Hokage took him out for dinner, a happy time. A time where he felt safe. Remember Naruto, the old man was always there for you, he will always be there for you. He is just trying to protect you. He could scarcely recall a good memory that did not have the Hokage in it. When Naruto got into fights in the orphanage, the old man came and gave him a home. When Naruto was starving, the old man gave him a meal. When Naruto was borderline destitute, the old man got him back on his feet. Naruto felt the warmth of the memory come to him and his fists slowly unclenched. The thought of killing the old man and leaving the village was stupid, the Sandaime was always there for him. He was just trying to protect him. Besides, he's the Hokage. Naruto scoffed. I wouldn't stand a chance even if I wanted to. On cue the familiar sound of an academy bell rang. With a groan Naruto hopped down off the roof and headed back to the place he loathed so much, making sure to wash his hands and face on the way. Welcome back class. Iruka greeted cheerfully. He received response with various degrees of enthusiasm with Shikamaru quietly snoring in the back. Chances are he did not even wake up for recess. A few seats away from the Nara, Iruka noticed a familiar blonde and nodded pleasantly. Naruto in turn nodded back before leaning into his chair. Ready for a good nap, Shikamaru? Naruto muttered. The Nara barely made any form of acknowledgement, but Naruto took the slight drool coming out of his mouth as a yes. Shikamaru was not exactly a friend per se, more like a fellow board student. All Naruto knew was that after several fights he was left largely alone, except for the bullies with little common sense. The Nara just showed up one class and joined Naruto in the back, only to promptly fall asleep on his desk, much to the blonde's confusion and amusement. The only time he would wake was when Iruka yelled at him or the final bell rang dismissing the class. Academically, Shikamaru was on par with Naruto in terms of knowledge and skill. Physically Naruto outclassed him by a huge margin, unless of course the jerk used the Kagemain whatever jutsu, in which case it was more of a challenge. Thankfully Naruto did not have to worry about that, as Shikamaru would just give up if it meant sleeping more. And after the first few incidents Naruto was not really allowed to spar with anyone, period. Naruto was ready to doze off himself while Iruka lectured on about ninja battle tactics, something he memorized years ago, though for the life of him he could not remember when Iruka broke tradition. By the way class, we have a new transfer for us, Iruka smiled, she's from class 4C. Please say hello to Aburame Shino. On cue a small girl walked through the door. She wore a sea green jacket with a high color that reached to her nose, a set of brown pants and a pair of circular sunglasses. If it wasn't for her long flowing brown hair that disappeared into the collar, many would have mistaken her for a boy. Hello everyone, she whispered, pushing her glasses up the bridge of her nose. I look forward to being in your class. Naruto was caught off guard. Sure, he knew of the Aburame but never actually saw one, much less met one. They tend to keep to themselves, which suited Naruto just fine. But this girl, Aburame Shino, was different. Naruto could just sense something that separated her from the rest. He heard a faint sound emanating from her, there was buzzing, but behind that. What is that? Naruto squinted, titling his head slightly to get a better angle. Welcome Shino, Iruka smiled warmly, please take a seat. Shino nodded and took the closest one she could find, a side seat near the front. While Iruka was lecturing the class on the tactics of the Battle of Shadow Hill, Naruto's eyes never left Shino, the strange sound having both his full attention and curiosity. Is that music? That boy is going to be the death of me. I just know it. Part of the old man was furious, another part was upset, and the rest was guilt. His already large pile of paperwork got bigger in his absence. Rather than taking care of it, he spent all morning and some of the afternoon checking in on the injured academy graduates. It did not help that one of them, Makoto Aki, was the son of Makoto Ruvi, a Junin and high-level bureaucrat. The amount of wrangling and political arguments, stuff the old man absolutely hated, just to convince him to drop the charges took most of the wind from the Hokage's sails. Even then he had to deal with families of the other two. Although the Hokage managed to brush aside the issue like he did in the past, he noticed negotiations regarding Naruto were becoming more difficult with each incident. Beware what you say, Hiruzen. You just might get it. Homura muttered in response to Sarutobi's statement. We're lucky. The injuries of the kids will heal, just not for a long while. Even then the amount of rehabilitation will be a nightmare to experience. It could have been worse. Hiruzen held his head in his hands. If they did not get medical attention immediately they would have lost all their limbs. Thank Kami there were a couple of off-duty medics on site. He's getting worse. Kaharu interrupted. Not even Kushina was this bad. Kushina was not made into a Jinchuriki until she was in her early teens. By then she had enough mental control to be stable. Homura argued. Naruto was infused when he was just born. He has no mental defense against the Queen Mother's instincts. I wonder whose fault that was. The Hokage glared up to face his former teammate. Then immediately winced. The blame for what has happened rested solely on him. His teammates decided let that slide. Naruto is one of, if not the youngest Jinchuriki in recorded history, much less a Xeno Jinchuriki. Kaharu concluded. Bottom line is we have no idea what is going to happen. We might as well throw out what we have on previous Xeno Jinchuriki. Thanks to that prick, Mitsuhide we have little go on. Hiruzen grunted. And if we do that, we will have nothing. The only information Konoha had on the Xeno Jinchuriki was acquired through the rubble and what intel they collected from private investigations, courtesy of Danzo. Alright class, have a good day. Iruka waved at the children who ignored his attention, something to be expected when school ends. I'll see you tomorrow. And don't forget to do your homework. Many of the kids were already rushing out the door with Shikamaru himself slowly shambling out the classroom, most likely looking forward to going to sleep on an actual bed. Shino on the other hand walked out with almost robotic precision, her steps barely making a sound. Naruto was trailing behind her, far enough so as not to be detected but close enough to hear the symphony radiating for the Aburame. Naruto could not believe it when he heard it, but sure enough he could hear music. And it was beautiful. Naruto was never one for music, but he had never quite heard a tune like what Shino was making. A small ensemble produced a lovely tune which Naruto instantly enjoyed. He so desperately wanted to get closer to listen, but after the stint this morning he decided best to hang back. Part of him was curious how a person could make such music when they were so obviously not playing anything, but Naruto was far too entranced with the song he was hearing to care. He was almost disappointed when Shino turned left into a small out-of-the-way compound well out of sight, taking the music with her. The entrance to the supposed Aburame clan was well hidden, but a better word would be underwhelming. The entrance looked little more than an alleyway. Simple, out of the way, and easily dismissed. Naruto was disappointed that Shino left so soon, but it would be creepy to follow her into the actual clan compound. But then again he was going to see her tomorrow. Yes, Naruto thought with a small smile, definitely tomorrow. I should probably ask her about it. Naruto was about to go back the way he came when he realized that while following Shino, he had walked in the opposite direction of his house, and it was now getting dark. How far did we walk? Naruto cringed. The last thing he needed was to be out after dark. That is when the drunks showed up. His inevitable cursing was interrupted by a pleasant acoustic. Thinking Shino returned, he spun around to stare at the alleyway. It was only when he glanced into the alleyway that Naruto could truly comprehend it. An orchestra of music resounded through him as if the melodies themselves were a tidal wave. It was exhilarating. Naruto wondered how the hell the Aburame had escaped his notice for so long when they were making such welcoming songs. I have got to know more. The Aburame Central Hive was the main source of Kikai production. It looked unremarkable on the surface, but anyone who worked with the Aburame knew that appearances can be deceiving. Although the building was 2 stories high, it extended 23 levels below ground and covered an area of 5 hectares. Besides the Hokage monument, it was the largest structure in Konoha and got bigger every decade. The Central Hive produced the clan's precious queens and chronicled the development of Aburame Kikai interaction since the clan's inception. To the layman it was more or less a gigantic bug farm. To the Aburame it was a sacred place, the value of which was incomprehensible. The main entrance was a large laboratory. In the center was the primary chamber, a gigantic glass dome that extended from the ceiling all the way to the metal grate floor and below. Inside the dome was countless Kikai of different hives, all buzzing around in chaotic symbiosis. Along the walls were volumes of books stacked orderly in shelves, desks with microscopes, walls lined with genealogy and entomology maps and hundreds of glass jars containing kikai of various species. Underneath the metal grate were series of narrow walkways, ladders and pressurized water pumps. All of these were built around the primary chamber and the separate smaller chambers housing unique breeds of kikai. Each unique kikai hive chamber had its own exclusive set of thermal and moisture conditions. Through a series of catacombs they could pass to the primary chamber and back, allowing the kikai to interact and grow. It also doubled as an enclosed environment that allowed kikai to interact with nature. There was soil, trees, sunlight and a variety of other insects that allowed kikai to thrive while keeping them safe against unwanted attention. At the very bottom, on the lowest level of the structure, was entrance into the primary chamber. A large steel door stood out in the glass environment. Entrance into any of the chambers without approval was highly forbidden. Permission could only be granted by the hive gatekeeper or the Aburame clan leader, and that was rarely given at best. Those few instances when it was granted could only be conducted under the watchful eye of the hive gatekeeper. Aburame Shibi woke with a sudden start. The hives that he was bonded to were panicked and agitated. Aburame Mako woke with a sudden start. Her hives were also agitated. In almost perfect synchronization, husband and wife put on their dark sunglass which lay on their bed drawers. He glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 3 in the morning. Although Shibi did not witness it, he could quickly guess that all other the Aburame were undergoing a similar experience. This was quickly proven when his daughter ran into their bedroom. "Father, what is going on?" Although Shino's voice was calm and level, the furrow in her brow was unmistakable. "I don't know." He peered out the window and noticed several lights from other Aburame households flicker to life. The leader of Aburame clan briefly closed his eyes, attempting to get a lock on the source of the disturbance. He felt the source originate from his queen. The kikai was tugging on several nerves near his heart, attempting to send him on high alert. "That is bad." Shibi sent miniature chakra pulses to his queen, attempting communication, akin to Morse code. The queen sent similar pulses back to her host in response. It took a brief second longer to identify the reason why. It was one word: intruder. Shibi's queen, like all the other Aburame, was receiving a signal from the Aburame central hive. There was a security breach. The central hive itself was sending a call for aid. There was an intruder inside the Aburame central hive. That is worse. Aburame Shibi paled and for the first time in decades found himself sweating. If there was an intruder in the Aburame central hive, it would take very little to damage the precious kikai that dwelled within. Generations of research and careful work would be destroyed in minutes. Similar high-ranking Aburame started coming to the same conclusion, and already he could hear the sound of hurried footsteps and the buzz of swarming kikai homing in on the central hive. "Mako, take Shino into her bedroom and lock the door." Shibi jumped out of bed and pulled the massive gourd containing his secondary action hive. There was no time to change out of his pajamas. Mako's mouth partially opened to object, but she quickly closed it and complied. She hurried out of bed and took Shino by the hand and led her away. Shibi felt relieved that his wife or daughter would not be involved in this, and logically, their safety was statistically more likely. He jumped out of the bedroom window and landed on the soft earth beneath his feet. "Aburame-sama," a nearby Aburame acknowledged. He was one of the younger Aburame, a third cousin, no older than 13 if Shibi recalled correctly. His hair was exceptionally short, almost crew-cut, and his glasses had an angular appearance as opposed to the usual spherical shape. He was running at full sprint. Shuren, the clan leader, ran at the younger man's pace. Thankfully the adrenaline allowed him to keep up. Status? 18 dual-hived and 2 triple-hived are converging, including yourself. The younger Aburame nodded. 20 hived are following, including myself. Rules of engagement? Aburame Sancode was primary. Shuren commented offhandedly. Current standing is, kill on sight. No. Ensure there is at least one survivor to undergo interrogation. Shibi's tone sent chills even up Shuren's spine, though he would not comment on it. We need information on how they breached the hive and on whose orders. Understood. Shuren sent several kikai from under his sleeve out into the dark night, relaying the new orders. Aburame may not be the most powerful shinobi. Chances are they will never have one of their own as Hokage. But there is a reason why they are one of the 4 noble clans of Konoha. There is a reason why they are feared by both enemy and ally alike. There is a reason why people do not socialize with them. Thousands of insects slowly crawling over your body, entering through any orifice they can find will set most people running for the hills. The image of being slowly yet systematically devoured by thousands by tiny kikai will rattle even the most hardened veterans. These intruders, whoever they are, would come to understand the why one should be afraid of the Aburame clan. "Ready?" Shibi whispered. "Ready," replied Sancoat. The clan leader titled his head to allow a glance as several members of his family crouched next to several windows and doors, and those were the ones he could see. With the amount of kikai swarming, they could easily relay orders to those out of visual or audible range almost instantly. One by one he received confirmation from his family. Satisfied, Shibi gave the word. Breach. As one unit, 40 Aburame simultaneously breached into the central hive. They came in from all directions, front doors and the back, the windows, the ceiling, and from under the ground. They did so quickly and quietly, and in the heat of the moment, Shibi allowed himself a brief spark of pride before focusing on the matter at hand. The air was thick with kikai and buzzing. Every square centimeter was covered with the small insects, leaving no stone unturned and no hiding place unexposed. Several seconds of silence as Shibi and indeed all the other Aburame were exchanging a breadth of information. Clear. Shibi sighed. He quickly drew his kikai back to him. Status? Several of the Aburame checked the containment for the hives, checking and double-checking any possibility of damage. List all the hives, no evidence of contamination. I do not understand, said a blank female voice. Where is the intruder or intruders? Out of the way. What kind of dipstick thinks he can barge into this chamber under my watch? Aburame Shin, the hive gatekeeper, shoved past several of his clan to get to his desk. He began to troll through all his papers and books looking for anything missing. Shin, who was the clan leader before Shibi as well as his father. He was different from other elders, namely in that he lacked the conservative niceties that most Aburame embrace. He swore, he abused, he laughed, he smiled, and he told jokes, admittedly they were bad ones. When queried on his behavior, Shin always replied with some variance of, "I'm too old for this emotionless calculator mumbo-jumbo." Father, Shibi raised a brow. Was anything taken? No, Shin huffed. As far as my kikai are concerned, they did not so much as touch any of them. There is a perimeter around the central hive, it has not yet been breached. Did they escape? Negative. Sancoat shook his head. No indication of escape. Shibi began to look around the room, allowing his logic to walk him through the situation. If the alarm was triggered, and nothing was taken, Shin continued his line of thought. And there is no evidence of escape, and the central hive does not give out false alarms. Sancoat puzzled, and his eyebrows shot up in surprise. Someone is still in here. Kikai began to slowly come out of them and began to encircle the room. This time they began attaching themselves to other Aburame, sending signals. Shibi furrowed his brows as he concluded there was one place they did not check. Open the chambers, Shibi whispered. After several seconds he heard the sound of heavy doors being opened. Contact. I'm in the primary chamber. It was Shuren. He heard an Aburame whisper, his voice carried by his kikai to those above him. Several kikai users began to quickly move further down, their pace notably more frantic than before. In the primary chamber itself, Shibi's heart raced. The damage that could be inflicted would be limitless. Nightmarish thoughts flooded his mind. Thoughts of the next generation being without queens, the central hive slowly dying from some unknown pathogen or disease, and his clan withering away into extinction. All of this and more, and it would have happened under his watch. Shibi realized he would not sleep well that night or any other night in the near future. The clan leader pushed the thoughts away for the time being. He had to focus on the then and now. However terrifying that may be. Status? Shibi's brow furrowed. If someone was willing to hide in the main chamber, they must be either desperate or they were not afraid of kikai. Either case meant a possibly dangerous opponent. After a second of silence, Shibi heard a response. Asleep. What? Shibi realized that his voice betrayed his disbelief. Repeat and confirm. Several seconds of silence followed before he heard Shuren's voice, this time more confident. I can confirm he is asleep. I can second that. Another voice called out. Target asleep. Several of the Aburame looked at each other with stern neutrality, but the buzzing of their kikai confirmed what they thought. How odd. Aburame-sama? Shuren called out. You might want to take a look at this. Shibi nodded and began to climb down the steps to the entrance, followed closely by his father. They could do little but wait as they tried to climb down the steps as quickly as they could, and it was a long way down. When they reached the bottom, they saw Shuren along with 5 other Aburame peering into the primary chamber. The clan leader and the hive gatekeeper slowly walked in and were greeted by a tidal wave of Kikai of different hives, all buzzing in curiosity and surprise. However, once they recognized the queens that dwelled within them, they quickly left, allowing the Aburame to pass unabated. That was an unusually small greeting. Shin muttered. Where is the rest of them? I think they are over there. Shibi pointed to a large black cloud of Kikai that were swarming over in the middle of the primary chamber. They walked through the enclosed forest until they reached the very center. They saw a large Katawari hive mound stretching 30 meters in the air. At the very center, they saw a small individual lying immobile at the base of the mound. Millions of Kikais slowly swarmed the foreign entity but made no move to attack. They just seemed to float around him. What is going on? Shibi turned to his father. Some kind of jutsu? Unlikely. Shin shook his head. The way they float so calmly indicates some kind of resonance signal. The kind generated from a queen. Shibi's eyebrows rose in surprise but quickly resumed his neutral posture. They slowly moved forward, and as they grew closer, the individual became more defined. It was a small boy no older than Shino, and he was indeed asleep. What is going on? Shin mused, genuine interest in his voice. Shibi stepped a bit closer and managed to make out the blonde hair and the tattered clothes. He identified him immediately. Uzumaki Naruto, the Xeno Jinchuriki. The clan leader felt his father tense slightly before muttering, "Damn it. So what do we do?" Shuren asked his elder. Shibi thought about for several minutes and grunted. Somebody contact the Hokage. After they woke Naruto up, they walked him out of the main hive with very little fuss. Shibi had sent an emissary to inform the Hokage about what happened. He was there as record time. The Sandame showed up at Shibi's house with disheveled robes and bags under his eyes. The Aburame welcomed him in and asked him to have a seat, which the Hokage reluctantly took. After a brief but urgent series of inquiries as to the health of the Shibi's relatives and after firm assurances that no one was hurt and nothing was missing, the old cage seemed to finally relax a little. I am very sorry about what happened. The Sandame bowed slightly. I can assure you that Konoha is very embarrassed. Not as embarrassed as the Aburame, I assure you. Shibi bowed in return. For our security to be overcome by an 8-year-old boy is quite a blow to our reputation. The Sandame narrowed his eyes slightly. You and I both know that he is far from being an average 8-year-old boy. Shibi paused slightly before commenting, no, I suppose he is not. Regardless, he seemed unusually calm. Shin commented, I thought I would have to have him bound and gagged. Still, breaking and entering? The Hokage slowly placed his hands on his forehead in frustration. I swear, that boy is going to be the end of me. The topic of Naruto popped up in council meetings every now and then. Generally, he violently attacked someone or there was an incident where he got hurt and his blood got on someone. In both cases, someone was injured and Xeno-inflicted wounds rarely healed the way you wanted them to. Most of the incidents seemed to occur over trivial things, such as being taunted by kids, slighted by a shop owner, he cut himself during kunai practice, or a simple sparring exercise that got out of control. Others were disturbingly more serious, such as an occasional drunkard decided to try and assault him. There was even one instance when a small mob of people who lost families to a Xeno infestation tried to put him down. Naruto in every case got hurt, but not as badly as those who attacked him. This was due in no small part to the fact that the blonde never backed down from a fight even when he knew he would lose. It was Xeno aggression at its finest. Which is why, although there were problems in his younger days, many people realized that it was best not to provoke the Jinchuriki of the Queen Mother. Yet neither Shibi nor the Sandame were ignorant of the fact that out of all the incidents that had occurred, trespassing and breaking and entering were a first. What was he doing when you found him? Sleeping next to a Katawari hive mound. Shibi spoke calmly. He was not causing any damage, he was just there. Correct me if I am wrong, the Sandame asked, but don't non-Aburame stand a significant risk of being harmed by the Kikai in the main hive? You are correct. Shibi nodded. Unbound Kikai can react violently to non-Aburame. The Hokage paused with a confused look on his face. Then why did nothing happen? Shibi remained silent. The answer to that question still eluded him. Father, any theories? Best guess. Shin paused. Most likely mutual respect. Respect? The Hokage raised a brow. A queen recognizes another queen. Shin clarified. It's only natural. Kikai can sense the queen? Shin might as well have told him that the Aburame actually use lizards instead of insects. It is the only logical possibility. Shin commented. Kikai attack regardless of what damage you can do. Acid blood would not even faze them. The Hokage frowned and closed his eyes again. Once he opened them, he had a business look in his eyes. Do you want to press charges? Shibi recognized the worry in the Sandame's voice. The council members knew what the Hokage did and how he helped Danzo with the ceiling. Regret weighed heavily upon the minds of the elderly Hokage. Aburame Shibi respected that Hiruzen was willing to do whatever he could to help the boy, but not to the point where he would bully people into compliance. I have had consulted with my father, Shibi gestured to the Hive gatekeeper, as well as other members in the clan. Due to the lack of damage, and due to the fact that nothing was taken, we are not interested in pressing charges at this time. You are more lenient on him than I would have been. Shin huffed. I would have had that boy flogged. Sarutobi flinched at the statement. Shibi secretly thanked his training for keeping him from revealing his embarrassment. He is just a child, father. Shibi spoke calmly. A mentally unwell child. He cannot be held responsible for the instincts of the Xeno telling him what to do. Are you sure? Sarutobi asked. Yes. The Aburame leader nodded. This is subject to change of course after a total count of our inventory. Provided that nothing is missing, our answer will not be altered. Shibi noticed a change in Hiruzen's posture, as if a huge weight lifted of the Hokage's chest despite his best attempts to hide it. I insist that any resultant medical attention or damage is paid for by Konoha. What he really meant is that he will pay for it. Shibi thought to himself. The clan leader knew that if he checked the budget and costs for the end of this financial year, their bills will be mysteriously absent from the books. Thank you Hokage-sama, but that is unnecessary at this time. Well, if you don't mind, I need to take the boy home. Sarutobi got back to his feet and bowed. Thank you for your time Aburame Dono. And thank you for yours. Shibi returned the bow. I apologize for getting you up in the middle of the night. That's why I am here. Sarutobi chuckled. Provide me with a successor and I'll gladly step down. Shibi made a mental note about the offhand compliment for future reference but did not comment further. They parted to a side room and they saw Naruto sitting in a chair flanked by 4 Aburame who made subtle eye contact behind their glasses. He looked strangely complacent. Naruto. The Hokage ordered. It's time to go home. Naruto turned his gaze to the old man and his eyes immediately softened. Rather than anger or rage there was sadness and guilt. Nonetheless he did appear happy to see the old man. Hello Sandame. Naruto smiled softly. Hello Naruto. The Sandame smiled weakly. Deep down he wondered how Naruto was going to look after himself after he was gone. I think it is time we left. But Sandame, Naruto pouted, I want to go back in the chamber. I liked it there. Several Aburame looked completely caught off guard. He wants to go back? Behind his spectacles Shin rolled his eyes, the kid is insane. Naruto, forget it. Sandame's stern voice seemed to render the blonde silent. You are coming with me now. Naruto looked ready for an argument but he quickly nodded in submission and leapt to the Hokage's side. The old man smiled apologetically to the Aburame before taking his hand and walking him out. Wait, Shibi spoke, much to his surprise. I have a question for Naruto. The Hokage paused mid-step and turned to face the clan leader. Naruto peered from behind the old man with a quizzical frown. Naruto, Shibi spoke, why do you want to go back to the chamber? Naruto looked at him with some suspicion before finally answering. I heard their music. They sang to me. Music? Shin raised a brow. What music? Who sang to you? The Kikai Queens. They sang to me. Naruto smiled, reminiscing in a daydream. It was the most beautiful thing I have ever heard. It made me happy. Interesting. Shin sounded genuinely intrigued, a thought shared by many of the Aburame who were present. Shibi glanced at his father from behind his glasses. Both of them looked equally dumbfounded. Thank you, Naruto. The Hokage took the opportunity to say farewell and take Naruto out of there before the Aburame changed their minds. Only the Aburame did not change their minds. If anything, they were fascinated. A boy, a non-Aburame child, heard the queen sing to him? You think he is lying? Shin turned to his son. My Kikai did not detect a shift in chakra or electrical activity. Shibi spoke wryly. That means he is telling the truth. That or he thinks he is telling the truth. Shin interrupted. There is that possibility. Shibi acknowledged. If he is lying, then he has reached a level of deception most shinobi will never be able to achieve in their lifetime. Fascinating, Shin muttered under his breath, unaware his opinion was equally shared amongst his family. Something to dwell upon later, I'm sure. For now I have one question. Who is the night watchman for tonight? Shibi felt his spine tingle, his hive buzzing in slight panic. A voice called out. It was me, sir. The voice belonged to one Aburame Sankote. It figured the first on scene would be the actual guard for the main hive. Aburame Shin readjusted his glasses by corner. A casual movement to a layman, a sign of imminent danger for the experienced. Let's have a little chat about security procedures. Sanko's back stiffened under his obscuring clothes. Yes, sir. The young Aburame began the arduous journey of following the former clan leader like a condemned man on death row. Naruto, you have done some foolish things, but tonight took the cake. The Sandame muttered. Trespassing? Breaking and entering? Are you out of your mind? Sandame, I'm sorry. Naruto pleaded. I had to go in there. Come with me, I can show you. Naruto tugged at the old man's hand, who quickly rounded on him. Naruto, there is no singing. Yes, there is. Naruto yelled with equal volume. Don't believe me, I can show you. Sarutobi was not interested in having screaming match with an 8-year-old in the middle of the night, especially in the middle of the Aburame clan compound. He paused slightly and stared into Naruto's eyes. Naruto may be aggressive and twitchy, but he has never lied. The raw emotion he displayed and his insistence on going back to the very place he broke in indicated that either the story is true or he was completely out of his mind. Precedent ruled out the latter. At least for the time being. The Hokage took in a deep breath and sighed. You really heard singing? Yes. Naruto seemed almost relieved. I swear to you, Sandame, they sang to me. I never heard anything like it. Must have been if you were willing to break into a clan compound. Which is a felony, by the way. The Sandame mused. Oh yes. Naruto smiled. It was more amazing than I could have imagined. Imagined? The Aburame sing to me too. Naruto nodded eagerly. I just thought that listening to the source would be even better. And it was. The Sandame blinked in confusion. The Aburame sing to you as well? Yeah, Naruto nodded. That is why I was fine going with them. They meant me no harm. Why, can't you hear it? Sarutobi wondered how he was going to explain this. It seemed too vivid to be a delusion. Could this be a Xeno trait? It was a distinct possibility. None of the previous Jinchuriki had close contact with Aburame. I think this is something only you possess, Naruto. You can't hear it? Naruto's eyes widened. I'm not crazy, Sandame. I believe you. Sandame smiled, ruffling the boy's hair. Regardless, I don't care what you heard. You don't run around breaking into people's houses. They could have hurt you, regardless of what singing you heard. Is that understood? Naruto frowned a little but nonetheless nodded in agreement. Yes, Sandame. The old man looked at the disappointed boy and felt rotten that he made him so different. Even the Kyuubi Jinchuriki had a chance of leading a normal life, but hosts for the Queen Mother. Well, it is too late to go back to bed now. The Sandame patted him on the shoulder. What do you say we have an early breakfast? It's on me. You can skip school, but just this once. Awesome. Naruto's face lit up in joy. Barbecue? A bit too early for barbecue. The Hokage chuckled. Naruto pouted a little, attempting to amplify his blue eyes. Okay, but you will have vegetables to go with it. I hate vegetables. Naruto blanched. Fine. Oh, and I noticed that you did not say sorry to Aburame Shibi. The Hokage said sternly. I expect you to give an apology to him by the end of the week. I will. Naruto sounded more confident. I promise. Okay. The Hokage led the young boy around the village. Now let's see. Where is the nearest barbecue place? Aburame Shin was so infuriated, and contrary to popular belief, Aburame do get angry. He spent all night and most of the morning metaphorically tearing the night watchman Aburame Sankote, a structurally superfluous new backside. Shibi actually felt sorry for the young Aburame and wanted to intercede, But the clan leader was not so foolish as to draw his father's attention when he was in such a foul mood. By the time the Hive gatekeeper was finished, Sandcoat was on the literal verge of tears. But there was meaning behind the Hive gatekeeper's less than pleasant chat. He managed to uncover much about how Naruto entered the central chamber undetected through a grate hidden under the second flood air conditioning. The flaw was quickly rectified in a matter of hours. Life in the Aburame compound returned to normal soon after. Shino had to return to school, something she dreaded. Hey cockroach. Shino resisted the urge to sigh. Anticipating verbal abuse from Amy and her friends was a tiresome and erratic activity. Shino narrowed down the time frame to any time during academy hours. As I said before, my name is not Cockroach. Shino responded with as much bland enthusiasm as any other Aburame. However, it was underneath the surface that mattered, and right now Shino partially resented having to attend the academy. It was not hate. Hate was a very strong word, and children throw out strong words when they do not mean to. It was just that Shino, being a girl, naturally meant hanging out with other girls. As girls fell within the broad category of children, they can be cruel. Oh really? Amy grinned. Could have fooled me. Those bug-like eyes, that ugly shell covering. I think you are referring to my sunglasses and what I can only assume is my jacket. I will admit the color does draw some parallel with the species Blatella osahini, but... Shino silently cursed herself for rambling. The girls were laughing. This always happens. Okay cockroach, Amy said between giggles. I can accept that. But what about the antenna on your head? Shino reflexively touched her thick dark brown hair. She always liked her hair and always struggled to keep it clean and neat. Shino felt embarrassed to say that emotional barb actually hurt. Why don't you leave her alone? The voice made it clear it was not a suggestion. They turned to the source and saw a boy with blonde hair and blue eyes. Shino recognized him as Naruto. This was a surprise on many levels. When Shino was receiving her almost daily, sometimes hourly, dose of Amy, no one came to her aid. Shino never expected help in the first place, but if she did, Naruto was the furthest one from her mind. Well, Ami's grin faded slightly but was nonetheless apparent. Look what the cat dragged in. What are you doing here? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You're a thug just like your brother. Naruto grunted. Your brother was put in the hospital less than 2 days ago and the first thing you do is bully someone. Why are you back? Don't you know nobody wants you here after what you did to Sasuke-kun? Amy dismissed him. This is none of your business, freak. Several onlookers, Sasuke included, flinched at the taunt. It was not the smartest move one could make, and Amy realized it almost a second too late. It wasn't a few seconds ago. Naruto growled, snapping his salivating jowls. It is now. What say we take this to somewhere private? Perhaps I can pass on the same lessons I gave to Aki. You'll get expelled. Ami's smile vanished, completely replaced with a notable frown, even fear. This time for good, my father has connections. Heck, you might even get caged like the filthy Xeno you are. Something boiled underneath the blonde's eyes. Something violent and malicious. The other academy graduates stepped back, although horrified at the possibility of another fight yet morbidly intrigued as to how it will turn out. But if Naruto could take on academy graduates, an average student like Makoto Amy would end up as mincemeat. I may get expelled. I might even go to prison. But I will become a ninja one way or the other, it will just take longer. Naruto grinned, baring sharp teeth. But if I claw your face, that is forever. No medical jutsu will take that away, father's connections or not. Amy wanted to tell him to shove it, but then again, this was Naruto. He attacked regardless of consequence, and if one drop of blood got on her, if he spat on her. Fine, whatever. You two freaks deserve each other. Amy walked off with her friends in step, but everyone noticed how her pace was quicker than before. I have been looking for a chance to fight her for a while, but she is crafty. Naruto grunted and wiped the drool on a towel he kept in his back pouch. Are you okay? Shino blinked several times beneath her glasses before responding. I'm fine. If they bother you again, Naruto glared at the girls who were almost out of sight, let me know, I would be only too happy to assist. How did you know I required assistance? Shino's interest was piqued. You were not very happy with their treatment. Naruto's tone sounded very certain. Shino raised her eyebrows in surprise. How did you know that? Naruto squinted his eyes in concentration, I just do. Well, regardless, you were correct. Shino nodded slightly. Thank you. You're welcome. Naruto smirked. What is their problem anyway? People think nothing can faze an Aburame, so people try and provoke an emotional response. Shino spoke quietly. She felt uncomfortable talking to someone who was not family. Shino accurately guessed that this was the longest social conversation she had ever had with someone outside of her clan. I am curious why you did not make them go away. Naruto raised a brow. I am sure your Kikai would be helpful. It is bad form to attack someone with Kikai over something so trivial. Shino recited the mantra set down by her father. It's a sign of bad character. Huh, Naruto frowned. But your situation would improve over the long term. No one would pick on you. People are nervous around those of the Aburame clan in general. Shino turned slightly to observe that some students were looking at them yet at the same time trying not to. Most people don't talk to me as it is. Well, I am not most people. Shino readjusted her gaze to the blonde. I didn't quite catch your name. Aburame Shino, is it? Correct. Shino responded curtly. Judging from Naruto's grin, he did not seem to take offense. My name is. You are Uzumaki Naruto, you are in my class. You are also the one who broke into the Aburame compound. Shino immediately regretted saying it. Naruto flinched as if withdrawing from a hot poker. I'm sorry, don't be. Naruto rubbed his head in embarrassment. It was a dumb thing to do, but it was a good idea at the time. Shino did not think it appropriate to ask, but curiosity got the better of her. Why? The Kikai. Naruto smiled. You like insects? Shino sounded genuinely surprised, and strangely amused. It was rare to find someone outside of Aburame with an interest in insects, much less their Kikai. Naruto thought about it for a moment before stepping a little closer to her, trying to keep the conversation private from prying ears. Not precisely. I like the queens. Naruto whispered. They sang to me. Queens don't sing. Shino responded. Kikai might chirp or vibrate but they don't sing. Yours did. Naruto gestured to a spot at the center Shino's abdomen. That was how I knew you were upset. Shino blinked in surprise. Naruto pointed out exactly where her queen was residing, just a few inches left of her heart. My queen? Yep. Naruto grinned. They tell me when you are happy or sad. Huh. Shino, one of the brightest students in her year, was lost for words. This is one of those times she really wished she had more experience with interacting with people her own age. Thankfully, the bell rang, which meant the end of recess. I believe we have to head back to class. Nuts. Naruto had a look of disappointment on his face. Ah well, back to the grindstone. Well, I guess I will see you in class. MN. Shino had to come up with a standard response that was not monosyllabic. It made her sound bored or dismissive. Yes, you will. Not great, but better. After class, Naruto immediately fell into step with her. Although Shino was surprised and a little bit put off, she did not object to his presence. She heard about the one called Uzumaki Naruto, but after a few moments speaking to him, all those theories and stories seemed debunked. The academy is so confusing. Naruto muttered. Sometimes it is so easy, other times I feel like I am bashing my head against a wall. It is meant to be hard. Shino responded, glancing at him from her peripheral. But who cares about the trajectory of kunai with a 40-meter-per-second wind shift? Naruto sounded exasperated. Who is going to bring a sine, cosine worksheet, a ruler and a calculator on a mission? Who has time for that? Shino actually felt a smile appear on her lips. Naruto was funny in a strange sort of way. I think it is a training tool so our minds can subconsciously throw more accurate kunai or shuriken. Just throw the thing, and if you miss, throw another one, only better. Naruto acted like the whole world has gone crazy. What happens if you have no kunai or shuriken and you have to resort to a stick or something? I think the point of the exercise is so you only need to throw one and not have to resort to a stick or something. Shino's eyes briefly widened. That might have been her first attempt at humor. Ha, Naruto laughed. I'll give you that one. So is this what it is like to have a normal conversation with someone? Granted, it was not like having a conversation with other girls who talked about flowers, hair and Sasuke, and his fluffy hair. Still, it felt strangely normal. Shino's thoughts were interrupted by something growling. That something turned out to be Naruto's stomach. I'm starving. Naruto rolled his eyes. Did you want to get something to eat? Shino paused briefly. Invited out to eat, that was unexpected. Shino always stuck to a timetable, but she was not obligated to follow it, and she was hungry. What did you have in mind? I'm feeling ramen. Naruto grinned. Though anywhere that serves meat is good with me. Well, ramen Ichiraku is not far from here. Shino pointed to a direction on the right. You read my mind, Shino. Naruto grinned and ran down the street. It's my treat. Come on, I'm starving. What strange person, yet incredibly funny. Shino thought as she ran after him, a small smile still on her face. Ah, can't find better ramen in town. Naruto patted his full belly. That implies you have tried other places. The old man joked. Have you been seeing my competition? Perish the thought. Naruto smiled. Ichiraku is the only one for me. It's nice when the customers show their love for us. Ayame laughed. Even more so when they bring a new customer. Shino's mind drew a blank and merely nodded in acknowledgement. The meal was lovely. So Aburame, huh? The old man smiled. Have not had a member of the clan for many years. We don't eat out much. Shino muttered, sinking her face further into her high-collared jacket. You should. Ichikaru nodded and began to move to another customer. Shino turned her head briefly to Naruto. He's a nice man. Yeah, Naruto smiled. One of the few decent folks in the village. He always honors his word. He even gave me the occasional free meal when I was in a bad slump. Slump? There were bad times. Naruto frowned as he recalled his earlier days. Mugged on occasion, store owners would not sell me food. One instance my house was set on fire. Really? Shino's mouth hung partially open in shock. That's horrible. Yeah, Naruto nodded sadly. Anyway, there was a period of about a week where I had no food, no home and no money. The old man provided me with ramen 3 times a day for free. I never forgot that. Ayame, who was obviously listening in on their conversation, chipped in. Oh please Naruto, she smiled, we did what anyone else should have done. Besides, you paid us back. It still means a lot to me. Naruto smiled weakly as he reached for his purse. After paying the bill, plus a surprisingly generous tip, they left. The sun was beginning to set and the sky turned a distinct orange. After several seconds of silence, Naruto finally spoke. I noticed, you did not finish all of your meal. Naruto raised a brow. You didn't like it? No, it was nice. Shino assured him. It's just meat is not my primary source of nourishment. It's not? Naruto looked surprised. No, Shino clarified. Kikai are primarily herbivores. That means, apart from chakra, they eat mostly plants and fruit. Really? Naruto sounded incredulous. I'm a carnivore all the way. I will take meat over greens any day. That can't be good for your health. You sound like the Sandame. Naruto huffed out something between a laugh and a sigh. By the way, how can Kikai eat fruit and vegetables and consume human chakra? Ah, Shino recalled her lessons taught to her by her father. Chakra is the same regardless of its source. There may be different kinds of chakra, almost akin to different flavors, but all of it is edible. Then why eat anything else? A Kikai beetle needs to eat, regardless of whether it is being used or not. Shino held up a finger to make a point. Aburame have 2 options: allow the Kikai to rely on their chakra for sustenance. A second finger sprung up, or we provide them with temporary alternative forms of nourishment. Fair enough. Naruto nodded. And your hive does not mind either? Actually they do. Shino sounded almost excited. This was the first time someone had shown this much interest in what she can do. If we eat alternative forms of nourishment, our link with the hive becomes diluted. We can't control them as well as we should, and it could lead to mutual rejection of the bond. Yeesh. Naruto seemed squeamish. That sounds like bad news. So I assume the bond is between yourself and the queen? Shino nodded. Then where do all the Kikai factor in? Do you ask the queen what to do and she delegates, or can you control them directly? Shino launched into lengthy explanations about the Aburame-Hive relationship. Rather than confusion, Naruto seemed even more interested. Asking about the hive dynamics, do the queens adopt a personality of the host or vice versa? When orders are made, is it as an executive decision or bipartisan agreement? Very fascinating questions, all of them, and these topics branched into various areas of entomology and interspecies interactions. As the saying goes, time flies when they are having fun, and before they knew it Naruto walked her home. He stopped short of the actual boundary of the Aburame clan area. Well Shino, I got to go. Naruto smiled. But I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Tomorrow? Shino wondered if this was a once-off thing, but apparently the blonde had other ideas. Sure, I'll see you then. Naruto waved as he began heading off to his own place across town. Shino trudged back to her house with a more uplifting step. Generally, the academy ended with her sulking and wishing she could just be trained by the family, but today was different. Dare I say that I made a friend? An actual friend? Shino wondered. She opened the door to her house and was greeted by her mother Mako. You're late, Shino. Her voice did not indicate she was cross, merely worried. Are you okay? I'm okay, mother. Shino nodded. I just had dinner with a friend. A friend? All evidence to the contrary, Mako was actually thrilled. Aburame always had trouble making friends outside the clan. I think so. Shino readjusted her glasses. We ate and talked for a long time. He even got Amy and her friends to leave me alone. Really? Mako raised a brow. That is fantastic. Sounds like a nice friend. What is his name? Shino was actually worried how her parents would take the news. Uzumaki Naruto. Mako looked almost frozen in place. Underneath the black glasses, her mother's mind was churning a mile a minute. Indeed, she spoke slowly. Well, that is nice. His voice was carefully neutral, even by Aburame's standards, but nonetheless there was a hint of something. You don't approve? Shino raised a brow. My approval is withheld until I get to know him. Mako waved off her daughter's concern. If he stopped those 3 girls from hurting your feelings, then he has good standing with me. However, I suggest that you don't tell your father as yet. I see. Shino was tense, but this conversation played out far better than she expected. Well, if you don't mind, mother, I need to prepare for class tomorrow. Very well, Shino. Go and study. Mako placed a kiss atop of her daughter's head. If you are stuck, please let me know. Thank you, mother. I will. Shino slowly walked down the hall of the house to her bedroom. Mako sighed briefly as she thought to herself. An interesting turn of events to be sure, but what will the future hold now? Shibi may be the head of the Aburame clan, but Mako was the head of this house and she thought it best to leave her husband out of this at least until tomorrow. Shino may fall within the category of being lonely, but she was not so desperate for friendship that she would be willing to compromise her own emotional growth. We shall see what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow came quicker than expected. The sun shone through the Aburame clan compound, the air filled with the distinct earthly smell of freshly cut grass and planted soil. Aburame houses were inherently quiet. There was no boisterous gatherings like within the Akamichi or Inazuka clans. Everything was simple and down to earth. So rather than a cooked breakfast with lots of food, Aburame Shibi and his wife Mako sat down in a quiet dining table eating basic nutrients, fruits and vegetables. Aburame Shibi was an early riser, an inherent trait of the shinobi profession. However, that did not necessarily mean he was awake. His mind was still comfortably back in bed. Being clan leader meant certain privileges. If he wanted to sit in his dining room table with a mug of coffee in front of him in blinking silence, then that is what he would do. This would normally happen until his daughter said goodbye on her way out. Normally. Knock, knock. The clock on the wall told the clan leader it was 8 a.m. precisely. Shibi blinked, glancing at his wife, who in turn glanced back. One would wonder how that was possible considering both were wearing sunglasses. But when you live in a clan full of people who rarely show their eyes, you tend to know when you are being watched. Shibi placed the steaming hot brew of life on the dining table and robotically walked to the door. He tugged on the handle to meet the source of the noise. The Aburame leader's mind jolted awake when he saw Uzumaki Naruto standing idly and looking a little nervous. Good morning, Aburame-sama. Naruto bowed. Good morning, Naruto. Shibi nodded in return. The clan leader's mind quickly ticked, wondering why Naruto would be on his doorstep. Naruto tried to smile, but whether it be jumpiness or just lack of social graces, it came off as a primal grin. How are you? I am well. Shibi played along. Yourself? I'm okay. Naruto gulped. Shibi, are you okay? Mako approached the door and peeked over her husband's shoulder. Oh, hello Naruto. Hello Aburame-san. Naruto bowed again. Sorry to bother you this morning. Nonsense. It's a pleasant surprise. Mako nodded. Please come in. Shibi blinked in surprise, but nonetheless acquiesced, stepping away to allow entry. Naruto gingerly stepped through the doorway. The silence was sickeningly awkward. Naruto looked like he wanted to say something, but he could not spit it out. Mako took pity on the boy and started the conversation first. I never got the opportunity to thank you for looking after Shino yesterday. Shibi half turned, raising an eyebrow in confusion. Do you recall the children that were giving Shino trouble at school? Makoto Amy? Mako explained. Naruto stopped them from troubling her. I see. Shibi thought Shino was pleased last night, and why she seemed less anxious to go to school. Aburame have always had trouble fitting in. Shino had it worse than others. The clan leader was pleased, but his tension did not subside. That still did not explain why Uzumaki Naruto was there. Are you here to see Shino? No, yes. Naruto puzzled, trying to form his thoughts into words. Yes, but that is not the only reason. Naruto took a deep breath and looked into Shibi's masked eyes. I'm sorry for breaking into the main Hive compound and causing you so much concern. I'm sorry. An apology. Shibi's shoulders lightened. It made sense now, but it was still unexpected. Apology accepted, Naruto. Naruto's posture sagged slightly and his smile became distinctly more human. At the same time, I should be thanking you. Shibi adjusted his glasses. Shino has had great difficulty at school because of Makoto Amy. I am grateful you have relieved her of the predicament. I trust it was resolved peacefully? Naruto, ever the clever one, took the weight of the Aburame's words and understood his meaning. There were words exchanged. Naruto stiffened slightly, but there was no physical violence. So threat of violence then. Shibi mused. Sure, he was none too pleased that Shino might have been caught up in one of Naruto's incidents, but still. I am pleased to hear that. Shibi nodded again, only this time it was a half bow. Thank you, Naruto. My pleasure, Aburame-sama. Naruto bowed in turn. While Shibi was unaware of what took place, his wife was more sensitive to the situation. As Shibi's tension and concern eased, so too did Naruto's. She had seen disciplined children and their actions. Naruto's behavior seemed linked to her husband's. It was quite fascinating. Mother, father, I am heading off to the academy. They turned to see Shino descending the staircase, pausing at the sight of their guest. Oh, hello, Naruto. Shino was dressed in the same bland clothing as her parents, making her look like a miniature clone. The Aburame leader took private amusement watching people discern who Shino's appearance took after. Hi, Shino. Naruto smiled sheepishly. I thought I would meet you on the way to school. Shino was a smart girl. There was more to Naruto's explanation. She could sense his awkwardness like a dark cloud. At the same time, a brief glance at her parents and the neutrality of their eyebrows was enough to convey all was right. Well, Mako gestured outside, you both better get to it. Otherwise you will be late. Shino took the hint and headed out. Goodbye, mother, father. I'll see you in the afternoon. Goodbye, Shino, have a nice day. Shibi turned to Naruto. You have a nice day too, Naruto. Thank you for your visit. Thank you, Aburame-sama, Aburame-san. Naruto bowed, following Shino outside. It was only when Aburame Shibi closed the door behind them did he sigh. You knew? Yes, Mako answered. I decided to allow further interaction before I informed you. I did not expect Naruto to act so soon. Clearly, the clan leader mused. That was unexpected. Was it unpleasant? No. Shibi shook his head. Just unexpected. The apology? Mako titled her head. Marginally. I was referring to Shino's friendship with Naruto. Shibi clarified. I did not anticipate that, especially in such a short amount of time. You clearly have forgotten childhood. The basis of friendship could be founded on nothing more than liking the same color. Mako placed a hand on her husband's shoulder. The clan leader ignored the jibe. I do recall our interactions commencing when I spilt tea on you. Then you know that friendship occurs in the most unexpected of occasions. Mako's tone betrayed the amusement of their first encounter in their teenage years. I acquiesced the point. Aburame Shibi joined his wife once again, wondering how this was going to play out if at all. This day turned out for the stranger, and he had not even finished his morning coffee yet. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.